Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'd like to introduce to you Jeremy Tang. He is my salsa and bachata teacher, and he has inspired me so much with the way he brings so much fun in his classes. He's been teaching this for 5 years, and I wanted to share his story with you to inspire people to go toward their creative pursuits. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us
That's
today.
okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I would love to show people about your class, so Street Latin Australia,
Sure.
just to let them know what it is.
So basically, Street Latin Australia is a school kind of like targeted for like young adults. So we have like a template when people register, and I'm like, just to let you know, we're all kind of like between 18 to 35. We like to, socialize after class. We like to have a drink after, sometimes before and during class. So just to kind of like to give them like the vibe that we are. But in saying that, we really value like technique as well. Like I've been traveling all over the world for 5 years to kind of like learn from the best so that I can deliver that to our students. So it's a very good combination between like having lots of fun but actually learning how to dance like well and feel good as well on the dance floor.
It really does come across because I found out about this on your Instagram ad, and the fun that you portrayed in it was what made it distinctive compared to all the other salsa classes. Because at the end of the day, I was doing salsa and bachata to have fun, and so that really came across. And also the age of the people, because at the end of the day, when we're doing hobbies, we want something that's fun and you're meeting your friends. So that's what I really liked about your classes.
Yeah, I think it's really important, no matter like what it is that you do, like whether it's like a new hobby, like a sport. I think the main thing to keep people going is they need to enjoy it. Like that's the bottom line. Like it doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are. Like you might have like 1% of people that are there to like, okay, I want to learn, I want to become the best salsa dancer in the world, and I want all the technique. But the 99%, like you need to give them like the element of like enjoyment and fun and community, and that's also really important. That's why like after class we go out and we have dinner together, and it kind of gives people like an outlet to like meet new people and socialize. So
yeah, great way to form a community as well. Yeah, so what brought you to teach salsa? So you've done it for 5 years.
So yeah, basically I never really intended to like I didn't start dancing thinking I want to teach. I just wanted to travel from 20 to 30 for 10 years and learn as much dancing as I can. And I thought by the time I'm 30, I'll see what kind of happens from there. But because of COVID, we were stuck in Australia for 2 years, and they said they were going to close the borders possibly until 2024. So I was like, okay, that's 4 years that we can't really go anywhere. So I thought, well, why don't I just like open up a school and see how it goes, and like to give myself something to do. And then yeah, like just it kind of took off, and we were like one of the biggest schools now in Sydney. So yeah, so that kind of fell into place.
And what did you think contributes to the fact that you were able to be one of the biggest schools in Sydney?
um I would say the target audience. I think a lot of schools, what they do is they kind of like fight over the same pool of students. They're trying to like convince each other to like to join their school instead, which is like totally fine. Like, and students should actually learn from as many people as they can. I encourage my students as well to go and learn from other schools. But I think why I was able to grow my community was because I would target like non-dancers, because I also bartended for 10 years. So like people that I met at the bar, like I'd be like shaking like cocktails. I'd be like cocktails and then like dancing salsa, and they'd be like, oh my God, like, where did you learn how to dance? And I'm like, well, actually I have a school. And like I was targeting a lot of people through like what I did like for work, like in the hospitality industry. And because naturally, like growing up, I had like a lot of friends on like social media anyway. Like a lot of them came to support me as well. So yeah, I would say like all that mixed with like the environment that we create, very very inclusive, very fun. We used to do like karaoke. I mean, we still do, but we used to do more regularly karaoke and barbecues and board game nights and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of like just building this like young community and giving people like an outlet to kind of like hang out and meet new people.
And then especially the fact that you said you target non-dancers. I think that makes it less intimidating for people to want to learn to dance, because I noticed other schools, they show a lot of their professionalism, but it can be quite intimidating for anyone who's starting to learn to dance. So I'd really love to hear about how you decided to teach bachata and salsa classes.
Basically, like, I grew up playing sports. Like, I played sports my entire life. I got into a lot of trouble growing up, so I felt like sports really like kept me kind of like grounded. Like, I didn't like completely go off the rails because I had basketball and volleyball and OzTag and all these sports that I played. Um, but then I just kept like getting injured and I kept like hurting myself, and then unintentionally, like, so like I'd get like shoulder injuries and like, or I'll hurt my knee or my groin or something. And then like one day I saw this girl dancing in a club that I was working at, and she just busted out all these like old school hip hop moves that I didn't know what it was back then. So she was like doing the running man and like the wop and like the smurf and all that stuff. And I just thought it was so cool, like, that she was able to just like dance so freely to like to the music. So then I asked her if she could teach me, and then she told me she taught classes. So I was hooked, and I did like classes every day for a year, like learning hip hop, popping, locking, like every dance hall, like everything.
Every day.
And then I decided to go to Europe because I wanted to learn from the people who created like these styles. So what they do is like they bring them over from America to Europe, and that's the same as like salsa and bachata. Like, all the best salsa and bachata dancers in the world basically live in Europe because that's where the money is. So sometimes you would get like, if you speak to like a Latin American, like they might get a bit offended when you tell them that you're like, oh no, like Europe has the best dancers, and they're like, no, like, like I'm from Colombia or I'm from like Argentina or whatever. And like, but it's like, yeah, the talent might come from there, but they won't stay there because what money would they be making living in Colombia? So they get like flown over to Europe, and then they pay for them to live there, and they pay like a good wage for them. So all the best dancers in the world are like all kind of gathered within Europe.
Yeah.
So Europe is a place like to learn whether it's like hip hop or salsa or bachata. Like, that's the place you want to go to get better. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I came back, and then I discovered salsa through like someone that I met. She wanted to do something together as a couple, so then we tried salsa lessons, and from there I just got absolutely hooked because the difference is traveling around the world solo by myself for 5 years. Like, when I'm dancing hip hop, you kind of like go to a club and you can't really go by yourself and just like meet people. Like, you can, but that takes a whole like different level of like confidence.
Yeah.
Where with salsa and bachata, you're going there to dance with other people. Like, it's set up that way so that you go, you ask someone, hi, would you like to dance? You have a dance, you could have a chat, get a drink, you rotate partners, like, and like it's there for you to kind of like meet people even if you're alone. So I found that so much more accessible to like the lifestyle that I was living back then, which was just solo backpacking. Yeah, so that's kind of how I fell in love with salsa. And then more recently I decided to switch over to bachata, which like blew up my international career because bachata is just so much newer, where salsa has like 30, 40, 50 years of history behind it, where bachata, in how it's being done now, it's quite new. It's only the last 5-10 years where people decided that it's like where people discovered like bachata central, which is like a new way of dancing bachata. So I think the market is definitely much easier to break in. So that's what I've kind of decided to focus on now.
So it seems like you have a marketing sort of mindset where not only did you pick a niche for your school, but you're also in tune with the trends that are happening. So, but how did you notice these things? What made you decide to move in this direction and capture the opportunities?
There's I would say there's a few things. Definitely you can notice the trend in festivals around the world. For example, back then it used to be all salsa. Now it's like a lot of bachata festivals popping up. Another thing is you can start seeing the demographic of people that are doing the dances. So people that are doing salsa tend to be now, especially in Sydney, like towards the older range. Like, so they're kind of like within like the 30 to like 70-year-old range, where you can definitely see like the bachata range is becoming like early 20s to like 40s. So you can really see that shift in like generation and what is kind of like in nowadays. And I think it's really important to follow these type of trends, because like as much as like you want to support something that's amazing and that has a lot of culture, you also need to embrace change and like kind of get with the times. Like otherwise you get left behind. So you need to always stay current, up to date, like see what everyone is kind of like doing around the world, and try and like jump in with that as well, and just to like just to kind of stay relevant.
And another big thing that I noticed that's quite pivotal in your life is the fact that you decided to travel in your early 20s. So what gave you the inspiration or the courage to do that, and how did you fund your lifestyle?
So that's like a really interesting one, because one day I was walking and I just had a thought, like a random thought. I don't even know why. I was like thinking like, what would happen if I got like hit by a car right now? And I pictured like myself dying. Like I pictured like, if you've never done this before, like I don't know if I would recommend doing it, but it was very scary. Like I kind of like thought about everything that I want to do, everything that I have ever done, and everything that I'm doing now, and having that just go away. Like, you know, like everything kind of like fading into darkness, and then like if you don't believe in an afterlife, everything will just end in this very moment, and like nothing kind of matters. Like it's just like, because sometimes when you don't think about life and you don't think about the time you have, you just think this is going to last forever, but it really isn't. So when I actually thought about that, I freaked out, and I was like, I am not happy with my life and what I have done. Like, you know, so what do I want to do the most? Like, I want to travel. I've always wanted to travel. I wanted to be in Europe. So yeah, like I thought about what I've always wanted to do. And I have always wanted to travel and go to Europe. Like it was my dream to go to Europe. I don't even know what it was about Europe. I think it's just about like having like 50, 60 different cultures just in one like piece of land, you know. So I just bought a one-way ticket pretty much like the following week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I bought it 6 months in advance.
Okay.
So I gave myself a deadline, and I was like, I think it was like probably like the 26th of June or something. Like, because every year I would go around that date. I bought it for like 26th of June. Because there was a dance camp I wanted to go to called Street Dance Camp in Czech Republic, and I was like, I'll figure everything out like from there. And then what I did was I used to work in a bar, so I would work my ass off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just save up enough to travel. I would always run out of money when I'm overseas, so I'd borrow money from wherever I could, like my parents, my friends, like just like, you know, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, and then I would come home, and then I would just work my ass off to pay off that debt from the previous year, and then have a little bit left to go away for the next year, and then repeat that process. And then like I would always just like borrow money. Um, Obviously, at some point, I want to get to the stage where I'm financially like just like kind of like financially stable enough that I don't have to borrow money from people anymore. But right now I'm still doing the same. Every year I take out a $20,000 bank loan, and I go traveling, and I use that money to spend on private lessons, on like keeping my school running while I'm gone, and I come home and I just pay it off when I get back. Yeah, so I'm kind of traveling on like borrowed money at the moment.
So not many people have the courage to just decide to travel or pursue what works for them, or even just realize that they can just figure out on the way. What mindset do you think you have that has helped you move in that direction?
I feel like I'm a fairly positive person, and I'm like quite happy mostly, and I'm quite confident in kind of like, I feel like everything will be okay. and I don't know. I couldn't tell someone how to embrace this mentality and how to kind of like feel this way, but it's just I feel like I can just do whatever and it will just be okay. Like, and just if you just trust the process, trust the journey, trust in yourself. Like, I know anywhere I go I'll be able to make friends. Anywhere I go I'll know I'll be able to find something to do, whether it's like making cocktails or serving drinks or like waitering tables. Like, everywhere I go, I feel like I can make something happen. Like, I'll be able to survive, you know? And then everything else is just about experiencing the things you want to experience in life, because we only live once, right? And our time is very limited. So, especially when you're young, it's, I know there's a lot of people that they think opposite. They think when you're young, it's about setting up yourself financially and like setting up your career and setting up your life so that you can enjoy when you're older. And I just think the complete opposite. I'm like, man, I want to like do all this crazy stuff when I'm young. Like, I want to go traveling and skydiving and like sailing and like all this stuff around Europe and all this stuff while I'm young. And then the like future me can deal with whatever. Like, when I'm older, I'll be tired. Like, my body will be sore. Like, I have all the time in the world to work and make money and build a family, but you know, I want to do all this now.
And did you always have that mentality, or did you feel like you moved into this mentality?
It's a bit hard for me to kind of like make that to kind of like, I don't know, because I didn't have the best time growing up. Like, I didn't grow up with my mum and dad around, so um I think life was just a bit hard. Like, I left home as well, so I ran away from home and I was living on the streets, and I got into like drugs and like I was just living a very like kind of like not the best life, you know. So I was kind of more in like survival mode, and I was just trying to get by, and like I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know why I felt things I felt, which now, like, as an adult, I realized like how much like, you know, childhood trauma and not having your parents around could affect you like growing up, and actually you carry that into like even now as an adult. But back as a teenager, I didn't know. I was angry. I was depressed. I was like, why isn't my dad here? Why isn't my mom here? And I was just kind of like acting out. So I would say like the first part of my young adult life was dealing with that, like dealing with drugs, with gambling, with like um, just trying to like, you know, um, I feel like I couldn't be in this mentality, like this positive mental state. But I do feel like it was always in me. Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden I did something magical to kind of like embrace this mentality. I think even as a child, I was always like a go-getter. I was always like playing sports and running around and having fun and stuff. So I think it's very like circumstantial. It like, yeah, it depends on like your circumstances and your environment that kind of like dictates how you are in that present time. Um, so I think like where I want to go with that is just, I feel like if you can kind of like work on yourself and your personal development and put yourself in a good mind space for you to embrace this sort of mentality, because if you're not in that headspace, I don't think you're giving yourself a fair chance to even be able to be happy and think like, I just want to experience the world and be happy, when you have so much like stuff you're dealing with like internally.
So how did you feel like you transitioned into this mindset you have now? Was there certain thoughts that you had, ways that you've changed?
um I personally feel like one day, and like I speak about this like, you know, when everyone ever comes up, I would love to be able to give people out there like this like process that I did to kind of transform my life, you know. But in reality, like, I really don't, because what happened was, one day, I think like there was one time I almost like overdosed, and from there I thought, why am I like wasting my life away? Like, you know, I've got so much to offer to like the world and to for myself. Like, I was quite talented growing up, you know, I was very smart. I played instruments. played sports, and like, you know, people really liked me, and I just felt like, why am I like throwing all this away? And then one day I just completely decided to like quit everything cold turkey. Like, no more drugs, no more alcohol. Actually, not alcohol, sorry. No more drugs, like no more gambling. I got myself a job where I wasn't allowed to gamble. So I applied for the casino just so that, like, because you're not allowed to gamble there. I refused to go to any places that had like pokies. So whenever my friends wanted to go and hang out at a pub, I'd be like, no, I'm not going. Um, and then I kind of disassociated myself with a lot of my friends as well, which they, you know, I feel like in the beginning they didn't take that very well. Like they thought I was like too good for them or whatever, but it wasn't even that at all. It was just like I didn't trust myself, and I wanted to like do something more with my life. So yeah, I completely changed my life. Like stopped like all the old habits and picked up new ones. I think getting a job out in the city, away from like, you know, from out west, was like good for me as well. It was just less of like of temptations around for you to kind of like act up, and um yeah, and then from there, like going to Europe, that I think that changed my life, honestly. Like going by myself and just traveling, meeting people, and like seeing a whole different life. And yeah, from there I've just made it my goal every year to go traveling.
What would you like to tell your younger self now? Is there like any advice you'd like to give to your younger self?
I wouldn't. I would be very proud of my younger self. Like everything that I went through, I think I had to, and I wouldn't be like the person I am today without all the experiences that I went through. And I'm like very proud of, you know, my younger self for surviving through everything and living through that, and then becoming um, this now, you know, achieving all this stuff, like having your own dance school with like, you know, over 120 students, and getting paid to go and dance in Europe. Like it's just absolutely crazy. So I wouldn't change anything. Yeah.
What about people who are currently at where you were at before? Is there a message you'd like to share with them?
I think no matter what you're going through, I feel like if you just hang in there, if you just keep holding on and pushing, like you'll get out of it. Like time heals everything. But at the same time, I feel like you also need to want to do something with your life. Like there's going to be hundreds of people that want to help you, but it's never going to work unless you want to help yourself. So you really need to think about what you want to do out of your life. And like I always go back to, like, you only have this chance once. You know, all it takes is for you to say like, enough is enough. I'm gonna do something out of my life, and just start doing it. Like once you take the first step, it's okay to go backwards as long as you keep moving forward. So you can take, you know, 3 steps back forward, and take 2 steps back, take 3 steps forward, take 2 steps back. It's fine. Just keep moving forward, and you know, I think things will work out.
And what has traveling to Europe taught you, or how has that changed your life? Because you said that was also another experience that opened your eyes.
When I think about my experiences in Europe, like I just get so happy, like seeing a whole new world, you know, like different cultures, different languages, like architecture, food, everything is just so like different. And the people that you meet there are just incredible. I feel like people over there in Europe are just a little bit different in the way they think. Like I feel like a lot of them, they they love their life. They have their struggles, don't get me wrong, but they love to live, you know. And it's like, and then the people that you meet that are traveling as well have the same mentality as you. They want to go and meet other people and feel alive. So then the conversations that you have are very like passionate, and like the interactions that you have are very like genuine. And you meet like lifelong friends, and you share these experiences together, like trying new foods, going out, like seeing like incredible like mountains and views and stuff. Like it's like an adventure that just I think really like fills your soul. Mm.
And for anyone who wants to solo travel as much as you do, what advice do you have for them?
I would say you just got to do it. Like it's the one thing. Look, I can't say it's the one thing you'll never regret because you might have a bad experience, but um, it is absolutely incredible. Like you just have to do it. Like the hardest step is to do it for the first time, because I put it off for 3 years. I was like, oh, let's go, like, and then you have friends that are like, oh, you want to go, let's go together, and you make all these plans, and then your friends pull out, and you're like, oh, okay, that's fine, like maybe next year then, and then you keep holding it off and off and off. But once you book your own ticket and you go, you'll discover that traveling solo, especially in this day and age, is so accessible. You have hostels that organizes like group dinners and group outings and like and walking tours, and you go together with another like 20-30 solo backpackers. You have free walking tours in every major city that you can go to at like 10 a.m 11 and 3 p.m. Okay, so you meet up there, a whole bunch of other travelers, you walk around for 3 hours, and then you leave a tip in the end. And most of the times you'll make friends during that walk, and you're like, oh, do you want to go like check out this place? Because the tour guide would be like, oh, if you have time to come back to this location, they do really good hot chocolate there or whatever. And then you just make friends that way. You have like apps that you can use, like you have like couch surfing, who that has like a feature that you can meet up with people like around you as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of tools for you to not. I was never alone, like when you're traveling. Sometimes when you travel with your friends, it can actually hold you back, because your friends might want to do this, but you want to do that, and then you might have like a disagreement, or like you have to compromise. Where when you're traveling alone, like there's no compromise.
Yeah, I agree. When I started traveling solo as well, I realized how it can be so much more flexible, and you get to meet so many people that way. Whereas if I was traveling with my friends, I wouldn't have had as many new experiences, or wouldn't have been so spontaneous. Yeah.
It's like definitely there's pros and cons to both, because like the con for me is that I would experience everything that's amazing in the world, but like I wouldn't have my friends there to share it with. Like I would share it with a lot of different people, but sometimes it would be nice to have your best friend or your partner to just like have all this with. But the pros is that, as you said, like traveling alone forces you to go out to meet people. If I'm sitting at a bar by myself, I would kind of like be more inclined to chat with the bartender or chat with the person sitting next to me. But if you're there with your friend, you're comfortable there, right? And then you would meet like a lot less people, definitely.
So what's next for Jeremy Tang? What do you have coming up? Anything you'd like to share?
I mean, right now I just really want to focus on my international career and at my school at the same time. And it's really hard to have both, but I'm just gonna try my best. So basically I'm about to go to Europe for 4 months. I have my trip and accommodation and flights paid for. So it'll be my first time teaching in a lot of these big major festivals. So I'm really looking forward to that. And at the same time, the school's doing really well, so I want to grow that as well. Hopefully find my own studio with Robertina, and she does like a sip and paint. So she has her own business as well. So she does like sip and paint. So we're thinking of like combining together and hiring and getting a studio, so it can be like half a dance studio and half like an art studio kind of thing.
Cool.
So yeah, I think that's what I'm aiming for next.
So as someone who is a business owner, how did you start all this? Because you're also hiring different teachers to help you with the different levels of the classes.
I would say I like have a very safe business model. So I'm not leasing out a studio. So I only hire the hours that I use. And then I don't run a class until I know there's like a minimum amount of like students that I know will help me break even. So if I don't have at least like 14 students, like I won't run a class. So and I've already factored in all my expenses, like the instructors, the studio hire, the ads and everything. So for me personally, I didn't actually really need to have money to start this, because I would make sure I have 14 people ready to sign up, and it's like, okay, cool, have the studio all ready to go. So I'd line a lot of things up, and once it's ready, I hit that like green button, and boom, people will pay for the classes, and then I use that money to pay for the studio, and then it's kind of all set like that. So that's how I've started. Now, because we've had such like kind of like a bigger school, I take more risks. So even if there's not enough students to break even, I'll still run the class because I want to keep my students happy. But then I know that people might start drizzling in as well, so I can take that risk now, because if one class isn't doing well, another class is doing amazing, so it kind of like offsets it a little bit. But yeah, definitely starting off, like, you can always find a way to get started without any money.
And as you've changed yourself as a person, how has that affected the people that you surround yourself with as well?
I would definitely say, as dancers, most of our friends are other dancers, so it's refreshing to kind of meet people sometimes that aren't in the dance scene. But I would say, as a full-time dancer, it's quite hard to have relationships outside of dancing, because we do it like 24/7. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're at a social, we're at a dance event. We're teaching Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Every weekend I'm at a festival now, like teaching, like and it's all salsa bachata. So I would say definitely, like, this, like, my circle of friends are like predominantly like 90% all dancers. But in saying that, yeah, I feel like the more I like strive to grow my business, the more I connect with other like entrepreneurs and other business owners, and now I'm working together with other people. Um, there's people in the dance scene like Artie and Jenny, who are also running their own kind of like dance school and own community, and I feel like we can have these really nice conversations as well, because like that's we have the same passion and the same kind of drive. So I'm definitely not kind of like, my circle of friends aren't like really going out to raves every weekend, and like and like taking drugs and stuff, like, yeah.
And what advice would you like to give people who want to start their own business as well?
I would say just take a chance, like, that's all we can do. Like, you will never know the results unless you try, right? So I think like trying already is taking the first step, and you've already succeeded, and you're already doing more than not doing it. And I would say, like, I mean, each to their own. You can go big right away if you want, or you can even just if you have an idea, maybe start it in a smaller scale. So I didn't completely just say, like, I'm going to open dance schools and run 8 classes a week. I started with 1, and when 1 did well, I did 2, and then from 2 I built on to 4. So like I started it kind of like slowly, but yeah.
To mitigate the risk, and to test the waters.
Yeah, but I'm in saying that, I'm not gonna like tell someone don't go big in the beginning, because maybe someone wants to do like a straight away, they want to do like a app like Airbnb or Uber, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. So I think that your limits and your dreams, like, are as big as you decide to like to have them. Like, if I tell myself I just want 200 students and that's all I want, that's all I'm gonna get. Where I have a friend in Melbourne who has 1,000 students, so that's not my goal. Like, I'm not trying to create like an empire and like have as many students as one. I'm very happy with where I am now. Maybe just like a little bit more, like I'd say between 120 to 150 students. That's like my sweet spot. I can still teach all my classes and interact with all my students, because once it gets too much, like I won't be able to give the same amount of like attention and energy to my students anymore.
Thank you so much for your time,
That's
Jeremy.
okay. Thanks for
sharing
having
all your
me.
advice. Yeah, it's really wonderful to hear how not only did you take your adversity, you were able to learn how to change and become the person that you're inspired by, and to live a life that is on your own terms. And I really hope more people can learn from that and move towards a life that inspires them as well. So thank you so much for sharing.
That's okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.